Welcome to the Nerdist Podcast number 50. Oh my god, 50 episodes in. I can't believe it. All I can say is, incredimazeballs is the word to describe that we've made it this far. And thank you for continuing to listen. We genuinely appreciate your support. I also want to say that next week will be the last episode of the Nerdist Podcast for 2010. And we thought that would be fitting to make that the Comedians You Should Know special, which was recorded live at Meltdown Comics on December 15th. Just great comedians doing stand-up in front of a phenomenal audience. This guys like Jonah Ray of this very podcast, Matt Bronger, Kyle Kinane, Jackie Cation, Chris Fairbanks, and others, so that'll be up the week between Christmas and New Year's. I would also like to say that Nerdist Podcast veteran Scott Sklar is offering Nerdist Podcast listeners a special deal on his books, The Rookie and The Starter, which are part of the Galactic Football League series. Essentially, it's sort of a cross between The Godfather and Any Given Sunday and Star Wars. So if you go to scottsigler.com/GFL, you can get free shipping, free gift wrapping, plus you'll get $3 off one book or $7 off a 2-book set if you use the checkout code NERDIST. So make sure and do that. Totally appropriate for children. It's not. It does not get the explicit tag like we earn so many times on this podcast. Which, by the way, let's talk about this podcast, episode number 50, with the Sklar brothers. The Sklar brothers are twins. So that's like what happens if you get 2 peanuts in one shell. They look very similar. They're hard to tell apart, but they taste slightly differently. The Sklar brothers and I have been friends for a long time. They are terrific guys. I love them to death, and they also have a podcast called Sklarbro Country under the Earwolf umbrella. So here you go. Really, this is super fun. Of course, I love talking to super famous people and talking about their processes, but I also love just having friends on that I think are hilarious, that are a delight to hang out with. So I'm not saying the Sklar brothers aren't super famous. I mean, they're not Ozzy Osbourne. I think they'd be fine saying that. I mean, maybe together they could combine to form an Ozzy Osbourne, like the character Station from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. But they're great guys, and so I hope you enjoy the Nerdist Podcast, episode number 50, with the Sklar brothers.
Now entering Nerdist.com.
Waters.
Okay, I have coffee.
And he never drinks his water.
Do you mind if I sit in the middle between you guys?
Yeah.
Just because
Right?
I like getting a fight. Yeah, I read the 48 Laws of Power. This is the power chair. It's got
You are in the power chair.
Oh, it's all warm from Jonah's body. Which is Jonah's Body, starring Megan Fox.
I love that, yeah.
Jonah's Body.
Remember we were driving back
Starring
up from...
Kathleen Turner.
Starring Kathleen Turner.
we were driving back
who's
up
turned
from
into a man.
Brand, when you were driving, like, my side of the car was all, like, steamy.
Yeah, that's right.
My body heat.
Yeah, poor Jonah. Jonah's a tall guy, so when you're driving with him, his head will hit the ceiling of the car hard.
Wow.
Because he's that big. But hey, enough about our fucking car antics. This is the Nerdist Podcast. Matt Myra's on my right, Jonah Ray's on my left. I'm Chris Hardwick. And sitting across from me, the Sklar brothers, Jason and Randy.
Thank you
Finally,
very much. We wanted
You
this
go Jason
for
or
a while.
Randy? I usually say Randy and Jason. No offense. But.
well, they're Jason and Randy, so...
Yeah, I know.
He reads right to left.
I do, I'm
like
Chinese.
The Hebrew Bible.
Oh.
Right to left. Like the true original Bible.
So if we could all just take for a minute to read from the Torah.
Yeah, this show is about scripture. Am I right? Or
I don't know.
wrong?
It really is.
I-
So you've listened to the show.
I listen to the show and I'm like
lot.
amazed at how much you parse the verses. I mean,
Well,
really where you picked up where the 700 Club left off.
I try to bridge the worlds. Is it weird that my yarmulke has a crucifix on it? Is
No,
that not?
it
Is that okay?
No, that it's in the shape of
Jews
a
for Jesus.
You know,
That's
my other
right.
car's a yarmulke. So.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
That
really
is-
great.
And so when he hits his head on the top, Velcro sticks yarmulke on
When
his
Onto
head.
his head, and then God pats him on the head.
I wanted to convert very badly to Judaism when I was a child because my reasoning for this, my mother would never let me, but my reasoning was I wanted to go into comedy and I thought you had to be Jewish.
You do.
I thought you
do.
I thought you
Oh,
had
you do. It is 2 Jews sitting across from 3 non-Jews. Without saying it. For the record, you look very Jewish. You should be a Jew. And I mean that as an insult.
I could have passed.
You had to pass.
When I was a kid, I thought you had to be Canadian because like a lot of comics I liked were all Canadian. And I used to tell people in like Hawaii.
I got to move up to Canada.
It was
I gotta
sixth
start-
grade, and I was reading sign language. The Jerry
the
Seinfeld
Jerry-
bit.
sure.
I was like, I got to do this.
I thought you were talking
You know
about Marley Manton's
my
part.
favorite, my favorite
Jew, also
story
a Jew.
in sign
Also a
language,
Jew.
the funniest bit, and this just showed like how great Seinfeld was. Like even in a book, he could come up with something that just made you laugh. Was his bit about the paperweights? He was just like, "What? Why are there like offices where just like wind? It's like wind is blowing off the desks. Like
That's
and
why,
it's,
you
like,
know-
weigh it down."
What I always loved about Seinfeld is that like when I looked at the other comics that I always liked growing up, they tended to be weirder, more character-y kind of based. Emo Phillips, Steve
Phillips.
Martin. I mean, even though I loved Richard Pryor and Sam Kinison and those guys too. But with Seinfeld,
Did you love Richard Pryor as like a little kid?
I did because my dad, for whatever reason, my parents knew that I was into comedy, so they would just record all this stuff. So I had a copy of Live on the Sunset Strip, and it was one of the specials that I, like when we first got a VHS player in like '81 or whatever.
Yes. How much of it did you get? How much of it did you understand?
There was
As
some
an
of it,
8-year-old
there was some
or
of it that I
9-year-old.
didn't understand, but I certainly understand like when he talked about the squirrel monkey fucking his ear and it felt like a wet Q-tip. Like, of course I understood it because who hasn't been fucked in the ear?
As an 8
Right?
or 9-year-old,
Right?
I mean, it's an
As an
8 or 9-year-old.
I went to Catholic school, so
Okay, that
Wet
explains
willies
it.
are very. They have
Wet
a lot
willies,
at that
that-
age.
I don't understand why when you mention your dad, you don't say Pro Bowling Hall of Fame dad.
Oh, it's implied.
Because it's a sport.
Do you know that I went when you told me that, and it took a long time for us. I think it was we knew each other for a long time. Back on Tops when you were doing it with us, and we had some time to just BS around. And
one of the best series. I mean internet or
Fantastic.
television back on Tops is
Series.
fucking hilarious. And I don't understand dick about sports, and I loved your show.
And you were nominated for a Streamy Award.
got nominated for
Best guest star.
No, I
Believe
didn't win that streamy.
I think Shmuley was robbed.
Yeah, you were in it as well. The guy who
I watched it.
Janet Varney was in it,
Janet Varney was in it,
and then a bunch of sports
I
people.
remember you guys had to
Brian
keep
Husband.
on telling me how to say the Jewish words over and over again.
Well, because I love that we are trying to force all. This goes back to what we were saying, Matt. That we're trying to force all of our friends who aren't Jewish into Judaism.
I'm
so
down.
we're
How'd you
trying
get
to
into
make Joe
Judaism?
rage,
Well,
yeah.
it was the web series back on Tops.
It really pulled me in.
It's kind of like when a character and an actor smokes for a character,
And
then
they
he
just
just
start
starts
smoking.
smoking. Yeah, same with
I don't
me,
think anyone will
Judaism.
deny that Back on Tops is a gateway drug to
It's a
Torah.
religious gateway series and a sports gateway series. But anyway, you were telling us, I think that your dad was a professional bowler, and we and the fact that who is it, Chris Schenkel?
That was named after Chris Schenkel,
You were named
yeah.
after Chris Schenkel, the announcer who had that sort of that guy smoked. That guy smoked
Yes.
a lot. That guy smoked while he was broadcasting, and just
Yep.
you could feel the gravel in his voice. But I went on YouTube and just watched footage of your dad, and it looked like an older '70s version of you bowling.
Yeah,
Which is
so
which was amazing. And the one thing about your dad that again, and we bowled when we were kids. We were in bowling leagues as kids, and our dad bowled. Our dad and his brothers and his parents, they were in bowling leagues in St. Louis, so they loved it. But what your dad did was he put no spin on the ball.
Yeah.
That was so I want to say revolutionary, but just so different.
Revolution. Well, my dad's had rheumatoid arthritis since he was 12 years old, and so when he first started bowling, he used the wrong fingers. He used his index finger and his middle finger and his thumb.
Right.
And then I think for a while in the beginning, I'm not even sure he put his two top fingers in the ball.
Wow. So it's just.
And then later on, he put the right fingers in there. So he just, because he has limited range of motion, he couldn't. It was harder to crank the ball back then. Because you're really talking about hard rubber and wood, and that was it.
Right.
And now there's so much technology, and if you watch bowling, they fucking...
Oh, we do.
You do, of course.
Oh, we watch bowling.
They crank... I wrote an article in Wired about it, about how...
Well, there's music now, and
it's
just
but the
strobe
technology of the
lights.
game, my dad would always complain, it's so easy now. It used to be about spares. The game's all about strikes now because the technology makes it so easy.
Yeah.
And it turns out they built this robot that would just throw strike after strike, and they realized that the composite material they make bowling balls from, it has glass particles in it to grab onto the lane, and that's why the ball hooks so hard. And they realized, they started to realize Oh yeah, this technology's kind of made the cover stock of bowling balls a little too easy.
Yeah.
Well, it's like tennis. I mean, back in the day, you look at an old tennis racket from the 70s, and it's about like
The size of your wallet.
Yeah, it's the size
like
of your
so
wallet.
small.
Like old skateboards too.
Right.
It used to be really thin.
And now these things, you go look at it and like it's huge. So the sweet spot is so big. So anybody, you can make a mistake and still, same with golf clubs, you can make a mistake now and still hit a good shot or bowl a good lane or bowl a good
Bowl a
line.
good lane?
I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
That's what
Yeah.
Giants do. They bowl
the good
lanes.
lines. Yeah, they bowl actual full lanes.
Rip Van
but
Winkle.
it just makes it easier.
Yeah, the drivers look like they have fucking Volkswagen bugs on,
Oh, yeah.
on,
So
on the
big.
end of them.
Small
big.
children hanging off the bottom of them.
That's right, just to really
Hammer X.
grab the ball with their hands. I have the Hammer X that guy's
Yeah. Oh, you got to keep it?
I did.
Nice.
It's not a bad club. I play golf every once in
Do
a
you
while.
really?
Yeah.
Let's play sometime.
I love.
I would love to.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Are you in? Do you
I
play?
play golf.
Do you really?
I'm in.
Let's play.
Holy shit.
You guys sound like you need a caddy. I'll be the caddy.
Lemonade.
That cool, refreshing drink.
No, we watch so much comedy. I think that's so fascinating. We watch so much comedy as kids in the same way. I mean, there was the Rodney Dangerfield special.
Young
The
comedian.
9th annual Young
specials.
Comedian special was one of those specials that...
It's one of those things that
Was the 9th annual with Robert Townsend?
No, the 9th annual was Saget, Rita Rudner, Louis Anderson, Kinnison,
Maurice LaMarche was
Maurice
in-
LaMarche,
Yeah,
yep.
who does a lot of voices on The Simpsons. Or he
And
did for the
he,
years.
I've worked with him a shitload on
Yeah.
on shows at Nickelodeon and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Who
awesome.
else was in? Oh, Bob Nelson.
Bob Nelson, yeah, loved Bob Nelson.
Bob Nelson with the
Okay.
routine with putting the
Football pads.
balloons in
Number
the
72.
shoulder.
Oh shit, 27.
Yeah,
Did you ever
so
see
good.
him do his goldfish bit? Where
No.
he'd blow bubbles and then he would make this little fish face and eat the bubbles like fish food.
Now, as a comedian who like occasionally does the road, just think of the amount of shit he had to travel with.
Oh,
Yeah.
Or
the
the moment of like after
I have to
doing
bring,
2
like-
shows on a Saturday night. Now I bet he had a third late show to like take the balloons out.
yeah, but to be
again.
fair, you have to pack a brother. I mean,
I do.
Do they
Randy-
charge extra for him or do you
$25
can't-
on American
really?
Airlines now.
You can't
yeah.
carry
Started
him
doing
on.
comedy.
Can't carry him on. No,
I will not fit in the overhead bin.
Not anymore.
Just bought one
Now that they're
ticket.
charging for everyone, everyone's bringing their brothers, and
Yeah.
and they want to carry them on. Instead
Well, it
of,
sucks. You gotta get him up to the jetway and they make you gate check him, and it's just a fucking.
Which again, if they were to just leave me out there when you exit the jetway,
It just
that's
makes more
one
sense
thing, but
instead
then
of making me go all the way back down to
baggage
baggage claim and pick them up.
Yeah.
It's awful.
such a pain in the
I
ass.
just don't want to fly tonight. You guys are talking about this. I'm just.
no, it's good.
Are you gonna
Hopefully
have to
you'll get the full body scan.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get
Do you have to fly tonight?
cancered.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
I can't wait to not.
It is the worst.
I haven't flown with a person. The last time I flew with somebody was with Jonah, and we were on opposite aisles. Like
Okay.
we were on, and that, but
We were
like,
both uncomfortable for different
Yeah,
reasons.
and my girlfriend is gonna be with me. I'm gonna
Okay.
be on the aisle seat, and I'm terrified of my elbow.
Are you terrified of flying in general?
No, flying's fine. I just don't. I haven't.
I hate it because I'm so uncomfortable. I have to.
My
I
knee-
can't. Yeah, I
My
can't
knee
afford.
does this awesome thing where if it's bent for more than an hour, it fucking kills.
It locks.
Yeah.
Does it pop in and lock? Oh.
Anyway,
It's a pop and lock.
podcast listeners. That's
Are you guys on the road a lot right now?
You know,
We've been on the road a little bit.
We did Helium up in Portland.
Isn't that a great? Oh, I haven't done Portland, but I did Philly. How's
Philly's-
Portland?
Portland,
is-
take
Philly
Philly,
times 20.
which
I mean,
Philly is
Wow.
great,
and
and then
Philly's amazing.
Philly's great. Portland is unreal. Like I wish we would have recorded there this weekend or that weekend.
That weekend we did, and we did the Punchline in San Francisco. And
Another
there.
great club. You know, there are just a handful of clubs where they really are performer friendly.
Get it
And
right.
It's like the Helium, Punchline. I was just at Laughing Skull.
Oh, I heard that's
Comics.
good. We're going to Comedy Works in Denver.
Comedy
You
Works
ever
in
done
Denver,
that?
the downtown club
Yes.
is
Yeah.
fucking
Going
awesome.
there.
Amazing.
And you guys forever ago had said you've got to do the Arlington Draft House.
Yes.
And I finally just did it in
Amazing.
September, and it was phenomenal.
We have to
Insane.
get back there.
Yeah,
too.
I love that spot.
place.
They're very nice there too.
Yeah,
right?
remember we took you there, Jonah? That
Are
was-
you? Yeah, you were.
Very nice.
You were in DC doing something else.
No,
No,
I flew
you
out there.
flew out there with us.
Yeah, with you guys, and then we.
And then we taped a little back on top.
Yeah, we went to Camden Yard.
in Camden Yards for the day,
Yeah.
and that was really
So
cool.
much fun.
So I want to backpedal a little bit because before we get to Back on Tops and how that came together, of course, you guys did Cheap Seats forever, and
Thank you,
I
thank
I
you.
don't. It was a hard. I enjoy watching you guys, but I didn't understand most of what you were saying because I don't know sports.
Right.
And we had this long talk about how our culture now has a lot of different shades of nerds.
Yes.
And you were like, and we're sports nerds, and like people like you guys know stats, and you know people, and you know years, and you know awards, and that is pretty nerdy. Even
is
though
so
on the
nerdy.
surface it's sportsy. So how did that show come about?
We did a whole special on ESPN after we had done some Cheap Seats, trying to get this guy who is a utility player.
Meaning he doesn't play every day,
But
he
he
plays
played-
multiple different positions in baseball.
Okay.
He's one of the only guys who played all 9 positions in one season. Like he pitched, which is a rare thing. Like a
Pitched.
professional level.
Normally, like they bring in an outfielder to pitch in a game when it's way out of reach and the guy gives up like 20 runs. I mean,
Okay.
it's like
It's very rare for someone to throw to more than 1 or 2 batters if you're not really a pitcher.
This guy, we
Okay.
brought him in. We were at the game. His name was Jose Oquendo.
He pitched for like 2 innings.
pitched like 2 innings and struck out He struck someone out.
Okay.
Like a position player.
But
not
he
a
was one of
pitcher.
these guys who was just sort of like an unsung guy who, you had to know baseball and you had to appreciate the sort of very tiny, specific, nuanced elements of baseball in the nerdiest of all ways.
Okay.
So we
To
did a
appreciate
whole
this
special
guy.
on ESPN2 on how to
Try
to
and get
him into the Hall of Fame.
All right.
And
Which
so-
will never happen. Never in a
It's not
million
gonna
years happen.
They
No,
don't let
no.
utility players
It'd
in
be
the Hall of
like
Fame?
it'd be like getting. I mean, it'd be like John Malkovich, or I'm trying to think of someone who's or Stephen Tobolowsky, who's like a
Getting into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, getting into the Baseball Hall
He's
of
got a
Fame.
better shot of getting into the Baseball Hall of Fame. No, but like winning an Academy Award, it's like it'll never happen.
I think
Well,
he
no,
was
we'll-
robbed for the character of Ned Ryerson in Groundhog
he
Day. If
was
we want
so
to
good.
talk about
I
it.
love
Needle-nosed Ned.
Tobolowsky.
Needle Nose Ned, Ned the Head.
Yeah.
He was just
So
brilliant.
anyway, it was so the way that show came about is that we had a friend, someone we had known for years, Gary Belsky, who was an editor of ESPN the magazine, and the magazine was like the one thing that grew the most at ESPN. And at that time, it totally surpassed Oprah's magazine, and it was like this huge money making entity, and they were very much on the cutting edge, even much more so than SportsCenter and anything else on what was new and now, and they just really were on the edge of what was sports. And so the network started to look to them, and they said, well, do you guys have any ideas for programs that we could do in a huge like company wide meeting? And so they asked them, we have this channel called ESPN Classic, which just shows like old games and stuff. Do you guys have any ideas for that? And one of their ideas was watch the old games, and they weren't sure.
They weren't sure if they were going to do dinner and a movie or if they were going to do it Mystery Science
Mystery
Theater.
Sports Theater.
Right. They were like, we're not sure what we want to do. So anyway, we were out of work we had been working pretty nonstop from like 97 to like 2000.
Oh, we'll talk about Apartment 3F.
Apartment 2F.
2F.
3F was actually where we lived in New
Yeah.
York, but 2F.
Yeah, but so we had not worked for I don't know, about 6 months. It was 2001. I don't know. It was just a weird
9/11.
time.
I'll throw it on 9/11.
Yeah,
Why not? Drop it down.
I'll
Drop it down.
a
You're
little
not
on
afraid.
that. I'm not afraid. I'll
9/11, which, by the way, the best thing ever said to us about 9/11 was by Morgan Murphy, who said, a very funny comedian, who said, did you guys take 9/11 harder than other people because you're twins?
It's hilarious.
And if you don't know Morgan Murphy, he's just the driest
Oh, yeah.
delivery.
Dead serious.
And
So
for
funny.
a second, I have to say that, like on September 12th, 2001, there was a brief moment where I was like, "Oh my God, are we next?"
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
You don't know. You got to be careful about who gets
Then we
on
called
you.
Zach and Cody, and they were only 6 at the time. We're like, don't hang
You
out.
guys don't
together.
hang out
Get
together
away from
because
each
you
other.
are definitely
they have
more-
a pretty sweet life.
more of a on deck.
I was just in Atlanta, and I heard a woman in the Atlanta airport, which is a terrible airport, by the way.
Awful. It's like it's sectioned off into like different barns. Like
It's like if they built an airport in a bee colony. Like it's just fucking like chambers, and there's so many
Weird.
compartments, and there's
Weird.
tons of people. But I don't know why this bothered me so much, but I heard a woman talking to someone else, and she was like, things just haven't been the same since 9/11. And I think what was irritating about it is that it sounded like the way that she was saying it, there was a pretense of she was trying to give it more weight.
yeah,
Right.
And that's
Like,
why
you
she
can't-
said 911.
No, she's talking about things haven't been the same since she dialed 111.
911.
Or since the Public Enemy song, 911 is a joke.
Oh, she did say fuck the police,
Yeah,
right?
she
after
did.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
She
She
said
dialed
that
911 a
WA?
long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
911's it's like when our Aunt Rita, God bless her, she just turned like what 78 or something. She
was talking
at
to
one
us about
point in
comedy.
time. She was talking to us. She said, "You know who I don't like? I don't like that Jay Leno." I was like, "Who's ever just like read it? Because if you read it and you only
It
know
looks like
the
Leno
word
if you
Reno,
go from Janet
it's-
Reno.
But like, who doesn't? Who's
No.
never
How
heard
it's supposed
it
to say it?
said?
I think
Jay
it is.
Leno.
I
I
Jay Leno.
remember like Christina Ricci said that once. Like
she
he was
really?
saying, isn't it your name supposed to be like Ricky or something like that? Like, and she's like, I don't know, isn't yours supposed to be Leno? He's like, all right.
Yeah, drop the tap
More
potato.
headline.
Now touring the
already
Five
done.
Lenos.
We'll do it again.
jaywalking.
Bag of Doritos. Crunch all you want. We'll make more. And scene.
And now that everyone stopped listening, we can really get into the.
Don't ever do the 5 Linos again.
The bit that killed Nerdist podcast.
Just hobbled it at the ankles. Took off the show's feet.
So our buddy had the show idea. We were in New York for a wedding, not even for work or
Bart
anything.
Coleman.
Hey, Bart and
Coleman.
Rebecca. Those
Good
are wonderful
friend, Bart
people.
Coleman, who for years worked at Comedy Central and
He's
Comedy
on the
scene.
Ferguson show now. I just saw him last
He
night.
is a
Give me some
great
breaks.
Friend of comedy, and he's a great guy. We were there for his wedding, and we met this guy Gary for breakfast. We're like, "What are you up to?" And he's like, "I got this show idea. I just need 2 guys who have really good chemistry, who know a lot about sports, who can be funny." And then he didn't say anything.
He was like, "Can you guys pass the syrup?" We're like, "What?
Wait, why would you
not
not
ask us to do this, Gary?"
Do you guys know another set of twins?
Yeah, if
who
you guys
are
could get us in
comedy?
touch with,
So he said, "I didn't think you guys would want to do something on ESPN Classic. It's not as big as some of the other places you've done stuff." And we thought, well, first of all, we haven't worked in a while, so we'll do anything at this point. But also, maybe that's the perfect place to do this because, and it was in many ways, and then in many ways it wasn't. It was kind of we felt the double-edged sword of it, which was it was amazing because we got to do whatever we wanted,
Yep.
but there was we kind of ran into it a little bit with them not understanding what it is we were doing. Like there was a brief period of time where
they wanted
a studio audience to be in. There were like 6 studio audience shows at the beginning of season 2 that we fought against. We're like, this is not a studio audience show. This is us hanging out on the couch, and the people at home are hanging out with us at 2 in the morning when they get home from the bar. And this is not them watching us deliver that. It's not that type of show.
Especially if you want to fly, if you want to fly 10 quick jokes really fast,
That's right.
the audience will throw that rhythm off, and you want to just have that connection with the
It
viewer
was
at
really
home.
hard, and they were using like a model of thinking from like '87, and
They're like, this is our late night variety show, which is what they didn't realize they were going to get, because what happened was they said, okay, we came in and pitched a ton of ideas. We went to this big meeting. Gary's like, if you guys want to pitch on this, I'll pitch you guys as the host, and you come in and pitch ideas. So we came into this huge ESPN meeting. We pitched 100 segment ideas, and we talked about tons of jokes, and we talked sports for like an hour, and they ultimately decided to go with us. But I think they thought they were going to get what they've been doing all along, which was just a sports show that was pretty funny. But our attitude was like, look, we want to make a comedy show that
About
has
sports.
as in the backdrop.
Right.
We want people to say, I watch this show, and I watch The Daily Show, and I watch Conan, and I watch Arrested Development. That's what I watch. Not I watch Cheap Seats, and then I also watch SportsCenter.
And when you start saying that thing, their heads all cocked to the side, like when
we didn't say that. We just did it.
Oh, okay.
Fortunately, we didn't say that.
That was
And
our unspoken sort of
Rule
what we were
to
trying to
our-
achieve because we were in that comedy world and we didn't want to just be known. It's so funny. I feel like we've sort of jumped into so many things. As twins, we're like, we don't want to be known as the twins who do comedy. We want to be known as a great comedy team who just happens to be twins, or that's what makes them unique. Well, we don't want it to be a sports show that's funny. We want it to be a comedy that it just so happens that
we want it to be
thing
the
makes-
one show about sports that comedy people are like, I don't know sports, I don't like sports, but this is just so silly. Watching these guys make fun of kids at a spelling bee is funny. That's just funny.
Or like a show like, well, the thing that was great and what was attractive to us, and I think there's something in it almost in the web soup that the stuff that you do and finding the videos and stuff is there was a time at ESPN where they didn't have all 4 contracts, Major League Baseball and the NFL and the NBA and the NHL when it was relevant, but like they didn't have all the major they didn't have all the major contracts, and yet they still had 24 hours of programming to fill. So you would get these programs like Super Dogs, Super Jocks, which was Olympic caliber athletes and their dogs.
It's a long episode.
And their dogs going through like the same
An
obstacle course. Like a
of
dog would go through this obstacle course, and then like Bill Lundquist, who was an Olympic swimmer, would have to like jump through the same
like
thing.
basically what looked like a 4-year-old's birthday party.
Only like
why shouldn't we turn Olympic athletes into performing
what
dogs?
Was the theme party? Was that it was some sea place in California that no longer exists?
Oh, it
anymore.
was just.
Oh yeah, there was a that's out in Palos Verdes. We shot MTV there. We shot there in like '98. It was. God damn it, I can't remember the name of it. It was tied into, I think it was tied into Hanna-Barbera too.
Yeah.
So there were a
Water
bunch.
theme park. It was
It was a
terrible.
Marineland. It was called
Marineland.
Marineland.
Yeah,
It's
it's
terrible.
an
Yes,
abandoned water park.
Oh, it's terrible.
nothing more sad
we
than that.
We were like, that's funny to us, and how can we make that funny to everybody? And so, I mean, and for us as well, you know, we talked to friends of ours like Michael Ian Black and Michael Showalter, who was a part of our show. He played, the show is called Cheap Seats Without Ron Parker. The idea of the show is that it was supposed to be given to a Sports Center like guy, Showalter being that guy who was just a total dick to the two of us, and we were his researchers. And then in the first 30 seconds of the first episode,
He gets crushed
by a tape shelf. And so he
goes
gone,
on
he
injured
goes on
reserve.
injured reserve, and we take over for him, and it becomes our show. And so, you know, we talked to those guys, and Michael Black.
Pretty high concept for ESPN.
I know.
It was.
We
It was a high
love,
concept.
and Michael Black is always like amazed that we got 77 episodes. I mean, he's done a few seasons of his show, but he was always like, whenever I talked to him, like, God, it's really crazy that you guys were able to go that deep. And I think our best stuff wound up coming in the fourth season, you know, or the third or fourth season. And so,
But the downside of that is we've been fighting for them for years to make a DVD.
Like when you
They're not available?
They are not yet, but they will be.
They will be. We have
Now
fought so
we're
hard.
finally doing it.
We basically are taking the onus off of ESPN through this guy, a fantastic guy, Stan Brooks, who is a producer. He's done a lot of TV movies. He did Broken Trail, which won an Emmy
With Robert Duvall.
and he did like the Bobby Knight story on ESPN and
with
so,
Ryan Dennehy.
Yeah, so he's
As
done
Bobby Knight.
he's done some stuff, and he's a fan of ours. And when we guest host Jim Rome's radio show, which is a sports, he's like the Howard Stern of sports talk radio. He's a fan of us when we do that, and he said, I would love to help you guys because he's wrestled some projects away from ESPN so he could do the DVD. So he's like, I know what to do. And so we
Finally, we're getting to do it.
I
But
think
like if you do a show for Comedy Central or anything like that,
you
they
finish the first season and you're already doing the DVD of it.
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
the
it's part of the
tour that
model.
goes with it. And then the thing, I mean, like I don't know, you guys should do like a web soup comedy tour. Like that would be great.
Well, we do every once in a while we'll do a Nerdist podcast live.
Which
And-
I
and
heard. I
sometimes
heard the
we're-
one at Comic-Con where you interview the Mythbuster. I mean, that was the myth. That was at Comic-Con.
That was a Comic-Con, but like we'll do like we just did the Bumbershoe Festival.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
You know,
We did twice maybe at Tiger Lily. We had like everyone that did comedy that works on Web Soup do a show.
Yeah,
That
we did.
is, I think that's cool, and we would love again because we were so associated with comedy. Everybody in comedy did our show.
I feel like there is a real opportunity, you know, just the intersection of the comedy and the sports thing. I feel like it seems like a no-brainer. Like there's a fucking audience. Like,
Yeah, of course. Well,
you
that's
know,
why we're doing
everyone
our
who's not
podcast.
me watches sports. So and Jonah.
Right.
So I feel like there's a
But also, that's the goal, though, with Cheap Seats, and now it's the goal with our podcast, Sklar Bro Country, which we do every week. But the goal of that is to say, how can we make this funny for people who don't like sports? And that's our goal every time.
I mean,
we
like,
do.
but who wouldn't think it's funny to hear a story of a female Australian golfer who gets bit by a 6-foot snake in the middle of an LPGA tournament and then finishes the tournament and like does well on the last 2 holes? Like, that to me, and then you gotta ask yourself:
Is this like a Spider-Man situation where she was now like, was it radioactive snake? Is she a
Yes.
super
Was the
amazing?
venom performance enhancing? You gotta
Yes.
ask that question.
Is she a
They test her
superhero
blood.
now?
When are they going to check for performance-enhancing snakes?
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Finally, we shine a light on that. But to me, I was like, wait a minute.
Then
What-
it goes into a whole comic book discussion about like that moment in the early stages of any comic book superhero who is sort of their exposure to whatever it is that makes them who they are, and like breaking that down and equating those two things suddenly becomes relatable to other people.
She travels with a snake and she has to get bitten before.
Before every-
She gets sad like Jake the Snake Roberts later in her career.
She's like,
in a
she's
motel
wa-
doing
she's
coke.
now watching other people get bit by snakes. Yeah,
It used to be enough for her to get bit,
by a
but
snake
now
with a couple
And
other people.
now there's a really elderly snake in bed next to her who just doesn't give a shit about it anymore. And she's like, that's how it used to be.
You used to care. Why do we always fight on
bite my
vacation?
leg. I'm tired.
Bite it!
It takes its fangs out, its dentures, puts it on the nightstand.
Or even worse,
Has a
it
night
puts in a
guard.
night guard all the fangs.
My
So
jaw's
that it doesn't
locking.
snort.
I'm having trouble.
I don't want to grind my
I don't want to
fangs.
click in the morning.
I don't want to grind my fangs. It's hard enough for me to bite your leg as it is.
They're in therapy. It's just so hard. Like I just don't want to bite the same person like all these years.
hard
I
for-
don't
hard
want
for you.
It is. I feel like it's expected of me, and I don't like that responsibility.
Well, you know, you used to be okay with it. Just be able to get up for it. This is good. This is good. for
No,
nothing.
this
I
is
like
really
it.
good. I like what you guys are doing.
You used to wax your legs,
Yeah, well.
and they were more pleasurable to bite.
When was the last time you shed your skin? I just.
I'm sorry. I'm
stress.
I'm worried about being on the LPGA tour and winning enough money so that we can stay in hotels that you like. Oh, you want me to stop doing that? I'll shave my legs all the time so I don't have to do that.
Yeah, I'll stop taking chipping lessons so that you can.
Deep into that discussion. So again, it's those types of stories. Those types of stories which but who, that has nothing to do with your knowledge of, the Boston Red Sox, which I know Matt's very excited.
Let's go back. Let's go back to Apartment 2F, which was that's when I first met you guys. You guys did this show on
We both were in the MTV
on
universe.
MTV. We did a photo shoot together for we did this Lee Jeans photo shoot that MTV was doing a sponsorship for.
For Details magazine, I believe.
It was a bunch of them. It was a bunch of them, and Details was one of them.
We shot it in Tompkins Square Park.
Or no, or
Griffith
Washington.
Park.
Griffith. Oh,
Well, we were
no,
in
no,
Griffith, we shot ours in Griffith Park.
Oh, yeah.
By the there was a big carousel. There was a big carousel there.
We shot ours in Washington.
And that
Square
carousel,
Park.
it's so funny. That carousel, I now take my daughters to go on that.
Do they
carousel.
recognize it from the Lee Jeans
They
photos?
do. They're
That's
like,
weird.
wow.
They have
This
some
is the
sort
type
of
of carousel
Well, there's
where
a
someone
big
would wear
sign.
really
They have some sort of cellular memory.
The picture is just wallpaper in his house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
very
Yeah, it was
familiar
you
with
guys, and
It's
then
like a True Blood moment where they'll see just weird shots of the jeans on people through my eyes.
or like in in the one with oh, my mind is totally blanking.
Yes, in that one.
Vampire movie with Kate Beckinsale.
Underworld.
Underworld. It's like an Underworld. Like the memories are in the blood.
Yeah, that's right. Memories are in the blood.
Which is a great way to relate to a 5 and 3-year-old.
They love that.
They love that.
Sweetie.
I'm amazed how that.
Memories are in the blood,
Finish
kids.
your blood. That's where the memories live.
Memories are in the blood.
It was Apartment 2F and then Austin's Story. So Kramer and Chip Pope and Laura House were there, and then Oddville too, which was
Oddville,
another
those
great show.
guys were
shit,
great
Oddville,
too.
yeah.
But great guys. And then Apartment 2F was you guys and Zach Galifianakis.
And then Showalter again.
Showalter
and
again.
Claiborne and Matt Price. Jay Nash did a little thing on it. But I mean, when you think of all the people who were on that
Stephen
show.
Colbert in the first-
was in the first episode. Amy Poehler, Matt Besser. I mean, UCB for their first.
So you really launched
years.
a lot of careers.
I would not say we launched it. We were lucky enough to have those people on. But Patton did stand up. Greg Barrett did stand up. Jim Norton did stand up. Arch Barker did stand up on the show.
Patrice O'Neill.
This was like 96?
97.
97.
Bill Burr. It was a really fun show.
I think of all the people, and we're friends with a lot of those people now to this point, and it was great. It's one of the things where we're like, oh man, not that we've gotten that much better, but you look back at our acting, and we were like, ooh, we were so green, and it was just so.
Yeah, but that's what's fun about
know.
that's what's fun about being in the business for a long time is that you start to. I'm sure I've said this a million times on the podcast, so I apologize if I'm repetitive. But I think it's always great to see people that you all started around the same time, and you watch which directions people go, and sort of what their thing ends up being, and then you can see Zach has clearly popped now, and Patton's doing a big movie, and it's just so fun to watch the rest of the world catch on. They're like, yes, this is what you're
is what we
finally
knew.
you're
This is what
finally
we
in
knew.
on this secret that we knew for a decade before anyone started realizing.
We were just talking about it today. We were working at a place in LA, like this hotel lobby, where the guy who owns the hotel is someone we know, is a friend of ours, and he was.
We're doing a stand-up set there.
Yeah, we were doing a midday lunch stand-up set.
It's like a lunch, like a nooner at a college.
Like at a college, they'll just put you anywhere.
Cafeteria's
Cafeteria.
on.
Comedy works anywhere.
Outdoors in the quad.
Oh, Jesus.
So you're in the hotel lobby.
So we're just talking to this guy, and we were talking about comedy, and we were talking about Zach in particular, about how, for years, he would, I cannot remember a set that he's done where he's ever, struggled or, was like, I'm just off my game tonight. He always killed it and was always funny every single time. Crowds loved him. And now, I think recently, we were on a show at UCB with him, Comedy Death Ray, and it was after The Hangover, and he wasn't announced, but he showed up to show a new...
People lost their minds.
A new Between Two Ferns. People lost their shit. I've never seen anything like that. It reminded me of the book, the book about Second City, the oral history book, where they talked about when Belushi first came back after doing Saturday Night Live, and how he walked into the space and people were screaming like the Beatles had shown up, or they were getting their necks slit. It was an insane moment. It felt exactly like that.
But then the best part about Zach is that, and I'm sure Belushi did it too, but Zach then delivered hilarious, brand new material that he had just written on stage. So it was not like, again, proving why he is
belongs.
deserving of all of that.
Yeah.
And I think there are so many people.
I mean, it's not to knock, and I'm not knocking this guy, but his rise was kind of meteoric in that way. Was like a guy like Tom Green, who, suddenly just became huge. Like, he had his shows on a few episodes, and then he did Letterman, and then he was on the cover of Rolling Stone, and then he was doing his movie, and it was like, whoa, who is he? Where did he come from? Has he put in the years? I don't know. And then it just dropped off. Like, you with Zach, you're like, oh, he's been doing this for years and years and years, and that's
years.
why
Zach, I not to start putting people into boxes and labeling them, but just kind of watching Zach and something recently, I was like, he might be the Bill Murray of our generation in the sense that he clearly can act.
Yeah, no, he's
like I think Zach will end up winning an Oscar sometime within the next 20 years. If he doesn't, because he's genuinely uncomfortable, I think, being a famous person.
Yeah,
Totally.
he does not like
And
that.
so,
He definitely
unless
does not like
he
that.
just decides to quit and just retreat to his farm in
North Carolina.
then
Maybe.
Well, do you like it? I mean, people probably recognize you when you go out in the world.
Well, yeah.
I mean, how does it feel? Are you?
They don't recognize. I mean, like, I'm not. I'm not on Zach level, so it's not.
No, but I mean-
I don't get. I do get recognized. Yeah, I do, but it's not crazy. Like,
Right.
I don't feel like
It's like the
God damn it, I can't live my life.
Think about when you're at Comic-Con and you're getting recognized.
Yeah, it does kind of
Because
bug you.
San
when
Diego
everyone's there.
Comic-Con?
San Diego Comic-Con.
Say Comic-Con.
Comic-Con. You know, the
Comic-Con.
communists.
Where all the-
Where the Ruskies go to talk
Comic-Con
about
is a
Cold
little
War
Comic-Con.
spies.
Well, I saw Yakov Smirnoff at Comic Con. He was
It
hilarious.
was unbelievable. He
Because
really,
apparently
What,
this
the
country
Comic-Con?
is very
In
different
Soviet
from
Russia,
his Soviet Russia.
Con is you.
Soviet Russia. But yeah, I mean,
we get it every once in a while. We get it enough to where it actually feels good, to be honest. Like, it's not intrusive in our lives, and genuinely, if someone's coming up to us, they actually
they know
are
what
a
we've
fan.
done and they're fans.
Yeah,
So it's
and
not
they're- and
like,
they're
hey, What
nice.
are you on? What
They're
are you,
nice.
the worst is
I
like,
do-
hey,
I do get
what
that
do you want?
sometimes.
Hey,
Where
have
do
I
What
s-
do you, what, it is
Where do I
like-
know you from?
It's
I
like in the
don't
scene
know.
in
Annie Hall.
Annie Hall
When
when
he
he's
shows
standing
Yes.
up,
outside
he's
the
not
door.
at the theater yet.
Where I know you? Where, you on TV? You on TV? He's like, yeah. No, he's like, no. He's like, he's on TV. He's Elvis Singer. Hey, Elvis Singer.
And then the best line is the other guy's like, who?
Yeah.
Who's Elvis Singer? This
Where?
guy, Elvis Singer.
And it's that, yes. we've had
Here's
that.
one that I love is someone kind of comes up and they just already seem sort of contentious and they're like, hey, my friend's a little shy, but he says you're on a show, but I don't fucking watch television. I don't know.
Exactly.
Well, what do you do? Why am I supposed to know you? Like, they get in your face about it. You're like,
why am I supposed to?
I don't know.
Why were you presented in my field of vision? That I now got to deal with.
I gotta
this?
deal with
Why did you make me come up to you?
Why am I
Thank you.
Why am I an Italian stereotype?
Hey.
Oh! What was Hedberg?
Luxury problems.
Yeah, Hedberg. Mitch Hedberg had a phenomenal joke about somebody's like, I saw you on.
Saw you on TV last night, and then didn't assign a value to it, like positive.
He's like, I don't know what to do with that. I have no idea what to do with this. So I turn in the Hedbergian style. It's so brilliant. He's like, I turned my head away and then I looked back at him and it's like, hey man, I saw you at the airport and you were good. It's so
great.
That encapsulates the whole thing, it's perfectly. But I mean, I do feel lucky that people do recognize some of the stuff we did and we've done. And I have to say, like the other night we did Doug Benson's show, the Doug Benson Interruption, which
yeah.
will be on this Friday. I don't know when this is going to.
This will not go up before it's on,
Okay.
but it'll repeat. The show will repeat.
Yeah.
Highest rated Benson interruption. We'll say that now.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's make it the
The
highest
show
rated.
that changed the way comedy is done on
Change the way comedy is done at midnight on Friday night.
I did one of them, and it was fucking awesome. So much
Yes.
fun. Did you have fun?
Yeah,
So
tell me
much
why
fun.
you liked it, because I want to hear.
I'll tell you exactly why. Because Doug had the presence of mind to tell them, like, don't just bring in an audience of
Yes.
random people.
Yeah.
You bring in comedy nerds who know what they're coming to see.
Through his Twitter.
Through his Twitter, you
Yeah,
know,
he's like, I will
and
not-
so
yeah.
people showed up. They were cool. It was like we're performing for the people that you would want to perform. You know, like
Absolutely.
it was just the right audience. The set was great. Doug was great. I had so much fun.
So did
Have
we.
you done stand up on TV, little sets on like Conan or that kind of stuff? Or
No, I've done. I did a premium blend, and I did the John Oliver show last year. I did a
Right.
couple episodes of that, and you know,
Yeah.
This probably was way better than all of the things than all those other shows, or no?
it was it was different. It was fun in a different way. The John Oliver shows were shot in New York.
Yeah.
Right. That's great.
That was super fun. They're all just fun in a different way.
I thought this was, for us, our best, and we've done 2 half-hour specials on Comedy Central. This was the thing we did with Doug, was our best set of TV comedy.
Well, your act is almost a nonstop interruption.
Well, we're interrupting each other, yeah, and then he interrupted
He very
us.
smartly picked
kind of
his
backed
place.
off.
He backed off and let us do our things, and then picked his points to come in and always made it better, always made it funnier.
But when you go to do a TV show, it's very. First of all, you're super nervous because you're like, I only get one crack at this. Like at any time, if it's a live one, at any time, this is the way I feel. Like I remember the first time we did Conan, or one time we did Conan. I forgot the opening line of what we were supposed to do, and you see it, and I turned to Randy at like
And
the
I
top
just
of the
took
thing, and he
it.
just picked it up.
I mean,
Thank God, or else if it was just me, I would have been screwed out there because it's so nerve wracking because you're thinking, okay, this is going to go out to everybody, and
you're standing right behind the curtain, and then this one in New York in '97 we did Conan, but like you're standing behind the curtain, and then they're like, okay, you're going to go out there. They tell you all these things that you have to remember right before you're about to go on, and we did Kilborn a couple times, same thing. And I always felt like the material we had, maybe we hadn't worked out long enough before we got up to then do it on TV.
But I think it's more of I think when you're performing comedy, you're at your best when you're totally uninhibited and you're at your loosest.
Yeah.
I think that's when you feel the most comfortable as a person. That's when I think you do, at least when we do our best work on stage. So we were just really relaxed. And then once we got on stage, the fact that Doug was going to be interrupting us meant that we had to keep all of our stuff alive in a way that we normally don't when you go and do like a TV set. And so we just had to be open to him coming in at any time. And then it ended up being like,
it was so much
we
fun.
found new moments in our comedy on a TV show. That's never happened.
that's
happens.
cool. That's
It's
really
great.
cool.
It's great. And so we kind of were like, well, we're still evolving. Like we're still, and you always want to feel that way, but I feel like we are still getting better, still figuring out what it is that we do and how do we do it the best that we
And we've been doing comedy for 20 years.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Really 25 years. We're 39 in like a month, and the first time we stepped on stage we were 14.
Holy crap. What do you do on stage at 14?
They were already men.
Steal other people's material.
To be fair.
Yes. You steal other people's material, and then you write a little bit yourself, and it's like a mixture of that.
How do you guys write? I mean, do you because your act is very like it's just like rapid fire jokes, and then
We'll bust into sketches. And
then you
stuff
go
to
into
illustrate.
sketches, and then you're like, I love that the Devil Went Down to Georgia bit is one of my
we don't even do
favorites.
that anymore,
But you know, you guys come in. Is it just having a sense of because you're twins and you have that super creepy twin connection? That weird cellular twin connection.
Yeah, I never put too much stock in that. Although we do listen to each other really well, and so like we listen for when the other person's coming in, and then kind of when to back off, so it feels kind of seamless. And the more we do our podcast, the better we get at sort of listening to each other. But
The more you do it too, the more you do it on stage. Like we basically will come to each other with.
yesterday we wrote with a good friend of ours, a great young comedian, and you know him, Hampton Yami.
Hampton Yami,
really
yeah.
good dude, and a good young comedian. We met him at the Arlington Cinema and Draft House.
Yeah, I
and we worked
performed with him before. He was a great guy. Yeah.
Great guy. And so we sat and sort of came up and helped him out with some bits, and he helped us out with some stuff, and we just kicked ideas around. Really, it was like a wall to bounce stuff off of in a good way. And what we do is we're like, all right, here's a funny nugget of an idea. Now, how can we make that? Let's just write as much as we can about this and what makes
Or
this
talk
funny.
it out. I mean,
Like we were flying the other day, and we saw, not to try this bit out, but just to explain this, saw like a
in SkyMall magazine, right? I started looking through SkyMall magazine, and first of all, they were like, they have surveillance glasses, like glasses where you can, as it said in the magazine, discreetly record everything you see. like the creepiest things ever. Randy and I were like, if James Bond were, I tweeted this, if James Bond were alive, he'd be shopping in the SkyMall magazine for all of his gadgets.
he would not have a queue anymore. It would just be
Bond,
like,
it's Q.
I
I don't need you.
I don't need you. I've got and so again we saw that, and then we saw like a dog
An end table
that is basically doubles as a dog crate. And to
Oh,
us,
yes,
was
I saw
you
that.
know that? I'm like, that is the creepiest, most hilarious thing ever. Like, who is it targeting and who are the people who are shopping for it, who are like shopping for other end tables, and they're like, I like it, it fits our style.
It's mission style.
It's mission style. It's great, but can you incarcerate a pet inside? You can't, then I don't want it. It doesn't fit. So,
you know what I hate when I put my drink on a table and it's not jangling.
It's not jostling.
It's not
I wish I
jostling
want this child, So anyway.
Bond, why do you have a planter that also is a cat box? Oh, it's a sky molecule.
Sky molecule. Yeah, it's that.
That was my Roger Moore.
It was great. It was beautiful. So, but like we start with that idea, saw the picture, that's weird, and then we just start talking it, improvising.
Then we're like, well, how can we then make it more of like? So that's the premise. But then how can we make it more of to include the two of us? Who are we in this bit? Like,
do you write it down with your hands, or do you start spitting it out and act it out and then jump in on each other?
I think we type it up on the computer just so we have it so we don't forget. That's the worst part is like when we come up with something and we're riffing and then we're like, what did we say?
No matter how awesome of an idea you think you have, and of course I'll never forget this. You will forget it in 2 minutes.
You will forget it.
So we kind of we do it in outline form. We always write our bits in like the form of an outline,
like on Microsoft Word or something.
Yeah, really. And then
Bank Street Writer. Oh snap!
And then we basically, but outline also then allows us to see like what are the directions that it goes.
Okay.
Like here's the idea, and then here's the sub thing, and this is kind of connected to this, and so we write it out.
Mind mapping.
It's right, and then we put it up on stage, and then that really dictates to us like, okay, well this is
that didn't work, or that something in there is right.
Like we had that idea that I just was like watching on TV, and I just saw like somebody wearing a sombrero, and I was just like, God, that's so like racist. Like just like the guy that's all right, that's the hat he chose, but it's like, could there be a more racist hat ever? And so we were like, well, what's funny about that's funny to us, and then who are we in this? How can we make this a Sklar Brothers like bit? And so we then were like, it was clearly not invented by Mexican people. It was probably invented by dudes who worked at a racist hat company, just kicking ideas around. And then we become the two white guys who are pitching the ideas
of the racist hat. And so that's how that bit became that bit. And then we did that. We just recently came up with that, and we did it the other night on the Benson show.
Where do you workshop stuff now? Do you workshop stuff on the road, or do you just like?
The road is a great place to workshop stuff in terms of like.
The road is a great place to take like a 2-minute bit and make it a 4-minute bit to write extra tags and find new directions and find other. But for brand new bits, we tend
I love
to do
going up in LA. There was like a bunch of
Tiger Lily is a show.
Tiger Lily's a fun show. There's UCB. Sean Conroy, who is a UCB demigod. And one of the most amazing improvisers you will ever see. Conroy put up a show at UCB last week called. I can't remember what it was called. The Incubator.
Yeah.
It's called The Incubator.
We were only allowed to bring half.
You only can do stuff you've never done before.
I love that.
And
I want to do it.
And the audience knew that was
Conroy,
the premise.
if you're listening.
And I did it, and honestly, it was one of the best comedy things I've done recently.
Did you get to do bits out of it?
Yes. I mean, listen, here's the thing. 70% of what I did just died.
But if 30%
But 30% worked.
That's 3 new
and
minutes.
that made me so happy.
It's amazing.
I knew the numbers would be about that.
It's gonna be.
But what's crazy is like I remember like at the beginning of a special thing when like there was a ton of like people getting on message boards.
Oh yeah, the
talking
special
about
thing was the comedy message boards where all the comedy
Especially
nerds
the
gravitated to like 5 or 6 years ago.
And they still go to that site. It's a cool site, but I think like most of the reviewing of the shows is kind of chilled out a little bit.
They used to review joke by joke.
Joke by
Every
joke
show.
of everyone's
Yeah,
set.
now people just record your set with an iPhone and put it on YouTube.
Yay!
No, the bad part about the reviewing is that like, well, someone coming up and doing CDR for their first time.
They're going to do their best stuff that they've ever done, and they're going to. I remember these guys came in, like this guitar group from Australia came in and like blew the doors off. You were there that night. They like blew the doors off with like stuff that was pretty funny, but like I was like, it's a little straightforward, but it's funny and it's cool, and it's music, which is always really entertaining and cool, but. They'd never done the show before, so they're doing like their best 3 songs.
Isn't that fun to go to a new place and then you're like, I get to open up the trunk and not feel guilty about doing the classics.
You know we're gonna destroy it.
Yeah.
And then Randy and I are coming to stage right after that, and we did fine. I was happy with the set.
Again, newer stuff that.
But we did a lot of new stuff. Some stuff we'd never said before ever on stage, and then maybe 1 or 2 older things that we knew would work. But like that was how we put together our set. And I remember like someone reviewed it like they had an up and down set compared.
Yeah, that used to
we did.
It was one of the reasons why I stopped doing Death Ray. There were periods where I was doing it a lot.
Yes.
And I always felt like, really sometimes every week for a stretch.
Yeah.
And so every time I went up, I always felt like I have to do like 70% new material.
So you're on the limb. You're out.
Always,
on the edge.
always on the limb, and then people are going up, and like you said, doing that kind of thing, and then I just started to feel self-conscious about it, like, because you can't explain. No, guys, I am using this
I'm on
space
the
to
edge.
workshop.
Exactly.
I'm not doing my A stuff.
on the tippy edge of my material, and that's you're using it for a different purpose. And
Yeah.
So I mean, if we can work out new material at Comedy Death Ray, we will always take that opportunity. But of course, sandwiched in between other stuff that we know has worked in other venues. It's kind of you kind of work it in other venues and then bring it to Comedy Death Ray, or you work it on the road and you're like, oh, this is a bit that we sort of, and then you bring it to like that's the way we kind of view that show. But also, I just saw Paul
Crash
Scheer.
Test.
Crash Test.
Oh, Crash Test is a great show
Great
too.
show on Monday
nights.
nights in New York, but they're bringing it back.
Yep.
It's
like an
here
11
now.
o'clock show.
That was like Aziz's show way back in the day in New York.
It was.
Aziz and Leo Allen was on that
Yeah,
show too.
Leo Allen hosted. It was so funny.
I mean, what's crazy about
that
it?
show? I mean, a great story about that show is that we went out to record our second half-hour special for Comedy Central, and we're like, I wonder where we can put it up before we go do it. So we got in on Monday afternoon, and we thought, or Monday night in New York, and we're taping on a Wednesday.
And I emailed Jeremy Levenbach, who books that show in New York. Great guy, really nice guy,
Really nice guy.
and a big comedy fan, and gets it. And he said, "Yeah, of course. You guys come down, do the show, of course." And so we were thrilled, and we show up, and like, I mean, this is a Monday night, like at 11:45, and it's like completely packed,
Wall to wall people.
three deep, like
Behind the
behind
seats.
the seats. The people are like standing like 3 people deep, and it was Leo hosted. Andrea Rose, Sean Patton did a set. Who you remind me of him a little bit. Sean Patton, really funny comedian. Andrea Rosen, Todd Barry, Doug Benson, and
Hey man, what are you guys doing?
Todd Barry and Doug Benson and Sarah Silverman went up. Then Colin Quinn went up. Then we closed the show, and we're like, all right. Normally in that scenario, that's a pretty daunting list of people to follow, but we were like, I think we're going to be okay. We know what we're doing. We haven't been here in a while. And it was the one of the best sets of comedy we've ever had. Every moment was getting the laughs we wanted to, and it was just perfect. And so
it was one of those like electric sets where you go, that this doesn't happen. This happens once every year or two. I mean, this is
I don't know the last time Colin's seen us perform. I don't even know the last time that Sarah's seen us perform, but like they came in and watched, and we were just, there are peers that we look up to, and they're a little bit ahead of us in the sort of the comedy genealogy of it. So it was really nice that they came in and saw that set. So we were feeling great.
I don't think genealogy is the right word there. But I'm just going to say that.
I'll accept it.
Okay.
Comedy
Do you accept it?
Judges.
Comedy Timeline?
Comedy timeline.
Comedy timeline.
I would say think of it like a class.
Okay.
They're the scene. They're the class
they're
above
more
you.
like juniors and we're sophomores.
Syllabus?
So, I
So,
don't
no,
know.
not syllabus. Anyway, so 2 nights later we do our special, and then we recorded at John Jay College, and it was a very different audience that they brought in for this thing, and moments and bits and things that got such good laughs and such good response like 2 nights before, we're not getting it there. And I was really nervous. We hadn't seen our special. I was so nervous that like that was going to show on our
The
faces.
disappointment would just like be there on our face.
Like, why are they so mad? And,
Yeah, why are they
because
not
we
having
knew what
fun?
it had done 2 nights before. It kind of
Sure.
spoiled us in that way. But sometimes in the beauty of this of performing and whatnot is sometimes.
But that's what's kind of cool. I feel like that's a story that we'll always have for ourselves, which is like, we're even talking about this, like, with cell phones, like you were saying, with people recording stuff. Like, take, for example, the Joe Rogan, Carlos Mencia showdown.
Yeah.
Like, now it was up on the internet and everyone was watching
Millions
it
of people
and
saw
millions
it.
of people saw it, and then you can decide, well, wow, Rogan really hammered him, or wow, fans of Mencia would be like, he stood his ground and all that stuff. But if it was the olden days, like before all that stuff, it would just become this great legendary story that everyone would pass down.
And then Rogan picked him up and threw him into the audience.
Scratched his balls and then he knifed him. I mean, like, it would get bigger and it would get crazier, and some people who weren't there would tell it like they were there and all that stuff, and it would just become this.
But now it's like,
you just go.
Oh, that
look
thing
at
that's
it.
on
Just go
YouTube.
click on it, and
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah.
It's like the other day I was so mad. I just got in the mail a ticket for like making a right turn on red, and you could make a right turn on red, but I apparently didn't come to a complete stop when I was doing it. But I looked on the pictures that was sent to me in the mail, and there I was. There was a red light. There was no sign saying you can't make the right turn, and my signal was on. I wasn't sure if my signal was on. So I called him up and I'm like all pissed off because it's like $475. It was ridiculous. Moving violation. I gotta go to comedy court, do the comedy driving class that the improv gives, which is so not
Who does
funny.
it? Do you know who?
If you've done that, if you've ever gotten a ticket, a moving violation, you go to
you
like
go to
the
the
improv
comedy
does the thing. You can do it online or whatever, but I got to do that. It's just like such a pain in the ass. So I called up and I'm like, what the, I have in my hand the evidence of this and this, and I made, but there is no sign on there. And the woman like let me rant it all out. I was like, I hate her, but like I secretly admire her. I hated her so much for like just letting me rant it all out and be like, are you kidding me? $475? You're raping me for this? And she was like, well, you could go online and check the video because you're supposed to come to the complete spot. I was like, video? No! You have video of me not doing that? And I'm like, I'm busted. So now I'm still mad. I've got all the like bravado of being really mad.
And you're wrong.
And I'm wrong. So I'm like, how do I channel all that anger?
But
And I
it
was
is
like,
true. But it is true.
Do like rednecks do and take it out on minorities.
That's right.
Or your wife.
Or your wife or your kid.
Hey, women are a minority in some cases.
That's
It's true.
Right?
And if your wife is a minority, you can really
Double hit that thing.
backhand and backhand and
And
forehand.
stay down.
Double word score on that.
But I
wife,
just was like
dude.
so mad. I was like, so where do I take that class? Huh?
What you want to do is you're trying to backpedal in a way where you want her to think like, that's just how you communicate all the time. Oh, do I sound mad right now? I'm not mad.
Thanks a lot.
I want you to have a nice day.
You have a good day too.
That's like that sarcastic David Foley character.
No, this is just how I talk.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I this is the worst. I got in an argument once with a city worker because the garbage men had destroyed one of our trash cans, and I guess it was an oversized trash bin, and there were two sizes, and I didn't know that. And she's like, well, if you want the same size bin, it's going to cost you an extra, like $30 a month or something. I'm like, yeah, but I wasn't paying that before, and
Now I have to.
and you guys broke it, and so now, and it got to such a point where I said something which didn't make any sense, and then she said something that made even less sense. But I said, you have a logic cube missing. I don't even know what a logic cube is. How would I know if it's missing? Her response. Her response. The city worker says to me, no, you have a logic tube missing. So then it turned into a childhood taunt back in my face, but it turned from logic cube to logic tube, which,
And
to
you're
be
like,
honest,
wait a minute,
Which
wait
is
a minute.
way worse,
There
by the
is
way.
no
That
such
is
thing-
so much worse to be accused of not having a
then when I
logic
started thinking
tube.
about the technology, I'm like, well, but if she's thinking about early
Like
60s
plutonium
technology,
rods, yeah.
there were vacuum tubes.
Stereos, like it's all.
Yeah, there were tubes,
Maybe she
analog
knows that.
technology.
I know,
Like she
it's-
might have been, but it was just, it was.
Tenacious D says,
like-
you got to get someone on the tube technology.
I just started laughing and I was like, I'll just take the smaller can. Like it was totally.
Fine, give me
Yeah.
a smaller can. I'll work with it.
But my point was that video has ruined the ability to
Tell a great story.
to have a
stories be-
legend grow. And for us, now connected to that special for us is like this night that was recorded by no one, nowhere, but we know in our minds that was the special for us, that Monday night.
You just reminded me of a very special story about how, and this, when I tell you the name of the other player who's involved in this, I think you're all going to be very impressed. 10 years ago, I was flying back from some MTV thing, and I was sitting next to Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Hello.
Was
He did not have a heart attack.
No.
He did not.
No, but I imagine Jean-Claude Van Damme buys 3 seats and just does the splits the whole time. So he sits with, because he can. Like if I could do that, that'd be like dunking a if I could dunk a basketball, that's all I would do. I would install basketball hoops everywhere around my house, just be like, oh, you want me to do that? Because I can. Just Van Damme.
Sir, do you want to sit in regulars? He just doesn't respond. We've been trying the whole time. He's in some type of meditative
Both legs
trance.
Are on the, both feet
Arms
are on the
folded.
armrests.
Sir, could you put a shirt on? Could you please put a shirt on?
You take the oil off.
That's when you can fly oiled up. You can't do that anymore.
He was great in the
Ever since
Expendables.
911.
He was great in JCVD.
I'm kidding.
He wasn't this oiled on the way out to Louisville.
So we're flying over a wicked storm, and if you've never flown over a lightning storm before, it is one of the most beautiful things you will ever see in your life.
Yeah.
Because watching a cloud from above, it looks like something out of Harry Potter, where it's just like this ball of clouds, and then all this lightning is just whipping through the cloud. It's
awesome.
It's how they always animate your brain working.
Yes, exactly.
His brain's working.
I guess Jesus was thinking about some things.
Sure was.
In the clouds.
It's all electricity.
And
guys.
It's so intelligently designed, is what you're trying to say.
Which, by the way, that was I wanted to pitch a sitcom called Intelligently Designing Women, where it was just a bunch of sassy Southern women teaching creationism to a bunch of dinosaurs.
That's hilarious.
thank
Well,
you.
Mike Furman and I, we did a country song called "Naturally Selected," which is all
I
about
remember that.
the breakup of, but where it's a country love song split between Jesus and Darwin,
love
and
that
I'm
song.
afraid to put it online because I just don't want to get fucking.
There was a slideshow with it, right?
We did. Well, we
That
shot a
was
whole
American
we shot a whole video
American
for it.
Dinosaurs,
We
yeah.
shot a whole video for it.
Pepitone.
You shot a video. Maybe that's the video. That's
Yeah, we
what
shot a
did.
whole video for it.
Pepitone and
All right, so Van Damme.
Van Damme. So we're flying over this wicked lightning storm, and I just kind of turned and I'm like, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and it pains me that I cannot take the memory of this and place it into someone else's head so they can see how incredible this is. And just all sage-like. He might as well have been doing the splits on the seats. He was like, but no, because this experience is yours and is yours alone. And you wouldn't want to give it to somebody else. This is a gift that has been given to you. And I was like,
Oh my god.
you just did some serious Van damage to my heart.
Van Damme.
Exactly.
You Belgium!
Exactly why the only VHS in my house is a letterbox copy of Time Cop.
Yep.
Oh, there it is.
Why's he got to go back in time? Because that experience was for those people. And he's going to go back.
He's not practicing.
Why don't you
what he
follow your own
preaches.
advice, Time Cop?
Don't confuse the art with the artist.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's what
He
I was doing.
a mental splits right there.
And I was so blown away that I was like, I just got fucking sensei schooled by Jean-Claude Van Damme.
And then you spit in the face of Van Damme by telling us that story.
Wasn't that awesome?
I did.
In that one moment, did you understand, like, all right, I understand, like, how, you really understood how much he got laid. You know, like, if you can look the way
You
you look.
can abstractly understand that it happened, but in that moment,
If it makes
you're
any-
like,
if-
you really got laid.
I let him butt fuck me in the laboratory. If that is anything,
I think you have to at that point.
you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
There.
it's required. At that game, literally, he might as well have just finished that and been like, after you. And just followed him.
Easiest part, you loved it.
Yeah.
So but just to
Belgian
sort of echo what you were saying, of course, the internet has ruined a lot of things exactly for that reason.
But that being the story and the lore, because again, a lot of it is, and we've been reading a bunch of books about comedy. There's a great book, I'm Dying Up Here, which was written by
Bill Canodolator, I want to say. It's a really weird long last name, but he was.
sounds like a 30s contraption.
It is.
Yeah.
The
It's the
Canodolator.
the Canodolator, kids.
But he was the LA Times beat writer for comedy in the 70s.
And then there was the strike.
There was a beat writer for comedy?
yeah,
that
his
was-
beat
what was
was comedy because it became this kind of crazy. It was rock and roll back
Well,
then.
also, like, think about, I mean, it kind of was the AST, I guess, of his time. There was no, like, people weren't going online to check stuff. It's like you had to sort of take the alternative stuff and put it into some sort of a...
Can you imagine crushing at the Comedy Store in like
Back in the day.
76?
yeah,
Amazing.
I mean, you would have done it in front of Letterman and Pryor and
But all those guys, but you
know,
just
and-
reading the stories of those people, and they all feel like it's like folklore almost. You're hearing the stories of how they would all, you know, it's so funny. Chelsea Peretti, we had a set of you were on that show, right?
No, he didn't
You
show
did not
up.
show up. That's right.
way to bring that up.
We're trying to get Jonah to learn how to use iCal.
Jonah was invited and he
Jonah
chose
was invited,
not
he
to
chose
come.
not
I didn't choose
Oh, that's
any
what
of
the
it.
story where you were like, I was supposed to open for the Sklars, and I forgot.
And I saw them the night before. They were on my show.
And we told them about.
We're like,
Which, by
all
the
right.
way, your show is another great show that we to
Oh,
like
the
try out.
Meltdown
Meltdown
Comic
show is a great
Yeah,
show.
Great
That is
show.
Great audiences and a lot of fun in a
Yeah,
really
they're
cool
great.
space.
People that show up.
But but anyway, so she was on. Chelsea Peretti is, you know, someone who we've been friends with, but I hadn't actually seen a full set of her comedy, and she went on before us, and
In Jonah's slot.
she went on right before us, and she was amazing. I literally I love her comedy so much, and I loved what she did on like she
took it to so many different levels, and it felt so free and improvisational. Well, while at the same time being so
great jokes.
written,
She
so
wrote
well
so many
written.
good jokes, and it was like. I was like, because you read a lot about Elaine Boozler back in the day, kind of busting in and doing it where the guys did it, and
Yeah.
she didn't care and did a different type of comedy, and you can kind of go back and see it a little bit, although she sort of changed through the 80s and whatnot, but I was like, this must be what they were kind of talking about, because I really felt like it was only a set that a woman could do. It was only a set that like she could do, and yet it was not exclusive to. It didn't make me feel bad because I was a dude watching it, and it just was funny, flat out funny on all levels. It's kind of the way I feel when I watch Sarah perform. But I was like, this was just. It was so eye opening and amazing, and I was like, this is incredible. This must be what it was like when you saw somebody who was
great
in that way. I was blown away.
Well, I was at Laughing Skull in Atlanta, and they have started doing these shows. Some guy basically took over an abandoned church in Atlanta and has turned it. He's taken every space in this old church and put some sort of a performance space in it.
Wow.
And he's like do improv there and that sort of thing. It's called Relapse, and so they had said, after your 2 shows on Saturday, do you want to do this 1 a.m. show at Relapse? And it's where all the comedy nerds, it was the first. They had done a few, but this was the first one that I think they were going to start doing it regularly.
Got it.
And so we're in the basement of this old church that they are still in the process of refurbishing, and there's this really great Atlanta comic named Andy Sanford who was really hilarious, and then Rory Scovel happened to be in town.
Oh, nice.
And he was fucking awesome,
Yeah.
and I think he just fucked around the whole time, but he did that thing where. He was very like his stuff was very acty outy and absurd, and he did that thing that Paul F does that I love so much, which is they dive so fucking far into a scene,
Yes.
where they start taking right turns with just little bits of information, and they make that the focus of the scene,
that.
and
Yes.
and it really felt like,
Yeah.
oh my god, this was so it's so much fun to be a part of this, and then watch, because club comedy is one thing. But then, and Laughing Skull is more on the alternative side of clubs.
That's hardly.
But at the same time,
Funny
it's
bone.
so much fun to watch people do the most fearless experimental
I love it.
shit imaginable.
And it should be what we all do when we get to where we get to. You know what I mean? Like, we should have no fear, and we should be doing that.
Which is
stuff.
what
but
I
that's
was
where
saying.
people get more fear because those people don't want to lose their success.
Sure. Well, what I say is, and that's why this set the other night, not to bring it back, the other night on Doug's show was so wonderful in that we were as fearless as I think we've been in a long time.
Have you been doing a lot of road work, you say?
Yeah, we did San Francisco,
and
then
Portland, and then it's a little
That
bit
helps
more.
so
That
much.
helps. It
That helps
really
so
helps.
much to once you are so comfortable with the words and
Yeah.
the beats, and
You
then
can have fun with it.
then you can go up and have fun with it because that's your safety net, is that you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
You could always come back to that. You can go out farther because you know you're safe.
Yeah, when we act out, when we do our comedy, it's usually, again, like, whereas
This is where we're kind of going.
where
more.
one person will do, a comedian will bring up a premise and then deliver like different examples to illustrate the point,
or maybe even act it out.
maybe even act it out.
That's what Drew Carey says. Drew Carey always says, that's a comedy staple. You lay out a premise and then act it out.
and act it out. But for us, we have the ability to actually go into a scene and really get into who these people are.
Like
And
the
sometimes-
Sleeping Beauty bit,
like the
which is one
Sleeping-
of my favorite bits.
Thank you.
It's
The
just-
Snow White, the
Snow White, sorry,
bit,
Snow
yeah.
White, yeah.
Snow White bit. I mean,
Which
again-
has grown so much even since you've seen it.
Well, I remember
Like,
even you guys were still riffing on it, playing with it in Arlington when we went out to DC. It's like you guys, it's like we've been thinking of, because you were thinking about that story.
Snow White, just that they live happily ever after, being the laziest third act in history. Like, no way. And now we're kind of like, well, we're married, and it really has turned into so much more about like you can learn to live with someone and all of their idiosyncrasies. Like
or you could go to therapy and understand why you made the life choice of that partner to share your life with.
and then make peace with that decision.
But you'll never live happily ever after.
That's like not.
that won't
So
happen.
that's where it starts, and then we're like, especially the way these two met. And so the bit is that we then go into, our impression of Snow White and her husband 8 months after they've been married and they're just having a conversation at the breakfast table. And so for us, it's like it feels almost like a Newhart bit, or
it's a Newhart bit, but you get the other side.
Right.
Newhart would always do, and what was so funny is to anticipate what the other person was saying, and I love that about that. But this is like, or a Nichols and May thing where you're like jumping into
where it's about all that stuff, and we set up all that stuff. But I think, like the Drew Carey thing, what our alternative sensibilities in us say is, fine, we'll give you the setup and we'll act it out, but we're going to act out things that you didn't expect to happen out of that setup.
So then it really becomes about them at the breakfast
and
table.
He's like,
the husband is like making veggie sausage, and he's like really focused on what he's doing.
But he's using the veggie sausage as a way not to really have the discussion that she wants to have. So he's talking about whether he should turn it from
She's like,
low to
forget
medium
about-
low.
forget about the
'cause
sausage. Just
maybe it
let's-
should be on medium.
You know what?
I
It
don't know how
doesn't
long
matter.
we're going to be talking
It doesn't
here. I don't
matter.
want to waste
I just want to have a
these,
type of
you know.
marriage where we can, and so like it becomes that, and we leave that loose enough so that we're on our toes, and then when we're on doing those shows, like
We're improvising.
anything can happen. And like in Portland, he was doing some things that were just, again, you never want to bust it on stage ever and just start laughing. But like I was like, that made me laugh. It was funny, and I tried to then, as that character, laugh in a way that you would laugh nervously as Snow
Or
White.
be angry that you're laughing.
Yeah, be upset at yourself. I mean, it's just great. It forces you as an actor to kind of in those moments. And so for us, what we found, and I don't know if it's because of our podcast or it's just because of the amount of stuff that we've done that's out there now, I feel like, and the clubs are going to, the audiences are willing to go with us longer and on our bits.
Yeah, have you found that like when you went out to laugh, there were like Nerdist fans were there and people were
Yes, and you know, and it was so much fun. Like nerds are starting to show up. Like the nerds that I want, like the people who listen to the podcast, and people that I would genuinely hang out with, are starting to show up to the shows. And all the shows at Laughing Skull were full, but the late show Thursday night, for whatever reason, 10 people showed up to the late show.
Yeah.
And so my first instinct was, what the fuck? I'm not where I want to be yet. I can't believe I can't sell out this room.
Right.
Despite the fact the rest of the shows end up being fine. And my first instinct was to get all mad. And then I realized, like, well, it's not the audience's fault that
these guys showed up.
So I used it as, I went out there and I started talking to the crowd, and then I pulled a table up from the audience and just brought each person up one at a time and interviewed them talk show style, just so we could all get to know each other.
That's hilarious.
And so that took an hour, and then I did my act for
Right.
I did 2 hours, which I've never done before,
No.
and it ended up being one of the most
Perfect.
fun stage experiences of my life.
That's really cool.
Which was
Great. It's like
which could have been like dreadful
I know, but
if I
isn't
had a bad
that-
attitude about it.
But that's the beauty of doing what we do and bringing it out there to people and getting around and seeing people. And again, we're finding with our podcast, like Sklar fans are like coming out in wearing T-shirts.
How is that going? We talked about this months ago.
Yeah, I talked to you and you said you have to do a podcast. And
Of course.
And you honestly, how convicted you were with, because you had only been doing it briefly. This was in the spring, and you guys had only done
it'd only
this
been a couple months.
How
months.
long have I been saying this?
You've been saying it too. But I don't trust you. I don't
It's like
trust you
2
like
years.
that.
How often are you on TV?
No.
Tell us what you
But
said.
Hardwick, I called you and
Well,
we talked.
pretty often, actually,
It
that's
was
stupid
outside of
video.
UCB, I think.
We were at Chelsea.
We
were
were
both
at
doing,
Chelsea
it was,
Lady.
it was one of the shows where they decided to start splitting you guys up.
Right, it was just me and you,
Yeah.
and I just had the longest conversation with you about it, and you were like, "Here's why you should do it," and I said, "Well, there's no money in it, and we got to make decisions that will help us make money," and you said, "Do this, and the money will come in other ways, or it won't come, but you'll feel so satisfied by what you're doing, you'll forget about that," and you are 100% right.
I mean, we kind of just started out the gate, and we were lucky enough to have some really good people come on the show and good guests that, like, I think fans were like, and then people who have been on lots of podcasts, but they're like Janine Garofalo, John Hamm, Patton, who was just on, or Birbiglia, or
Yep.
Swartzen. Like, these are all people that have their audiences that come to it in addition, and that's kind of what we thought. We got to really sort of dig in at the beginning. And they're all friends of ours, so there's like a real common sort of language in there. But it's been amazing. Like, we'll tell people 3 weeks out, like, hey, we're going to be in Portland, Sklar Nation, buy your tickets early. And then we'll get to Portland, and, we'd go into a club, and we're like, why aren't we drawing as well as we, we're like, that's kind of light.
Yeah.
We're like, really? If people knew we were coming, I feel like more people would show up to these shows. And we went in the last couple clubs, and they're like, you're drawing better than we've drawn in the last few months. And
That's
I'm like,
great.
that has to be.
I've been hearing that too,
It
and
has to be a function of the.
it
podcast.
is like the podcast is the best way to to connect with people that you want to be performing for, because they will, if they like what you're doing, they will download it and they will listen, and then when they show up at shows, like everyone, because I always go out and talk to people after shows, and they always, people show up more because of the podcast than anything else put together.
That's awesome.
And they are always nice, and I always like talking to them, and they're always like these really cool people. And then you realize,
incredible interaction.
you realize that if people listen to you regularly, it's probably because you probably get along with them.
That's right.
They like what you have to say.
You're revealing personal stuff, even though we're gagging around here. You're talking about in that moment, when you saw there were 10 people, like just even you revealing like that you were like, oh man, I'm not where I want to be. Like even just sharing that part of yourself.
Because a lot of people would look at you and be like, well, Hardwick's doing a show on G4 and he's like doing voices on this and I see him on that and he's doing stand-up all over here and he's on TV. What do you mean he's not where he wants to be? But the fact that you have that idea in your head and you just revealed that on your podcast.
Oh yeah, I recorded that. Sorry, Chris.
Is a telling thing, because
it is to open up people. I think
we all feel that
closer
way in many ways. For our fans, like we'll get tons of emails of like, I'm a grocery bagger. I hate my fucking job. My friend was listening to her iPod. She works at the grocery store with me, and she was cracking up. And I said, "What is that?" And she said, "Sklar Country." So I downloaded it, and now you get me through the worst part of my day on a Friday. You get me through. Where other people like, I'm commuting, and I listen to you when I commute in, or I'm working out. I hate working out, but it goes by like this because I'm listening to your thing. So what you realize is, you are with people in their very personal, and you're in their ear. They're like you're the very personal. Now, what I would love to do, and this is something that maybe even through sponsorship of our show, because eventually we're going to have to make money, and we're out to try and get sponsors and stuff. But I would love to open it up to where, remember when the Flaming Lips made that album, the Soft
Zurika.
No, the
Soft Bulletin?
Soft Bulletin, where they're. You had
that wasn't the Soft Bulletin. It was a different album.
Zurika is the one with the 4 discs.
The 4 discs
That's Zurika,
that you had, like you needed. They were like, music is getting so like individual. We want to do it so where people can like hang out. And so if you play
them all at the same time, right?
And they would like they wanted you to surround yourself with different stereos to play all 4 discs at the same time, and the songs would end up swirling around.
And I guess you could be one person with 4 stereos, but ideally, what they wanted was 4 people to get together and listen to music together. I would love it if people would then start listening to podcasts together. Be like, the thing that they do before they have people over, and then on Friday night when it drops, like we'll listen to the podcast together. That's what we'll do, and then we'll have a dinner party.
They might, but I feel like it is a pretty personal experience,
it is, but you never know where it's going to go, and so like it'd be cool to open it up that way.
It's so great. Are you working with Ackerman, the Earwolf thing?
Yes, we're on earwolf.com is where Sklar.
Yeah, Ackerman's so smart. He Scott Ackerman is the guy who Scott Ackerman and BJ Porter were the ones who started Comedy Death Ray, and they were a writing team, and they were for Mr. Show, and Scott does Comedy Death Ray Radio, and he really is smart about like pulling, like creating this network. I mean, I think podcasting is the best medium going.
It's the most exciting time. Him and Jeff Ulrich, who also works with
his business partner, Jeff, is a great dude.
They both got it with Earwolf, and they asked us to be the first show to do.
So funny because we were kicking around. Well, should we do it on our own? We're like, well, what should we do? I mean, should we just start doing the podcast? We talked to Fitzsimmons, who has a great podcast.
I talked to you. I talked to Matt.
Matt, you guys were all like, you just do it. So we were about to do it, and then Jeff and Scott approached us and said, would you guys want to do it? We're kind of opening up this network, and we're like, yeah, this is perfect timing.
Well, but I said it was so amazing. It is a golden age, I feel like, for comedy fans, for people who don't live in LA or New York or, in any of those places where a lot of us who do the podcast live. This is a chance for them to see us do new material every week. Every week, a new hour. I mean, it takes us like 6 months to write like a new 20 minutes for our act. Even.
It's a lot. I mean, we're trying to write, trying to literally
we're trying to cycle in a new half hour if we can every 9 months. So if we come back to places, then at least like 2/3 of the show is new for the audience that's there. But like, that's hard to do. We write material for our podcast, and I know this is more of a freeform interview, but like. You're giving them comedy. I listen to your show; it's entertaining. I listen to it while I hike. It's like funny.
Hey, that's nice.
So I do that, and it's like, wow, I get that entertainment from someone I like each week of new material every week.
And I think we're at the beginning cusp of it. I think it's only going to get bigger. I hope it only will get bigger. I mean, like shows that are getting like 20 to 30,000 downloads a week, which is kind of where we're at right now. We've only had about like 16 episodes.
That's really great.
So to be where we're at there, and I think it's growing. I think it's kind of
It will,
forward.
especially with like the iTunes suggestion engine,
Sure.
and then you'll start doing more of that stuff, and it'll be great. And
But I
hopefully,
think it will grow to like where shows like Marin's and yours and hopefully ours and definitely CDR will be at like 50 to 75,000. I know Corolla does his every day and gets 200,000 downloads or whatever he does. But like for all of us, we know there are people at this and Twitter, I think, are phenomenal tools to kind of identify our fans out there and sort of be like, hey, we're doing this.
I just appreciate that this whole network of people is so supportive, and that we
Yeah.
want to go on each other's shows,
Yeah.
and we want to help each other. Like we're all in the
I
same
love
fucking
it.
boat. Like we need to,
Yeah.
like the fact that we're all helping each other, I think is so fantastic. We're actually, this will go up before this happens, but like going back to earlier, like because of those Dangerfield specials that always changed my life so much, I decided that I wanted to do like a stand-up special podcast. So Jonah helped set up with Emily Gordon and Kumail Nanjiani. We're gonna do I would hate to call it a young comedian special because they all these people have been performing for a while,
Sure,
but
you're
a
breaking them to the
comedians
yeah.
you should know. So like Jonah's gonna do it, and Kyle Kinane and Matt Bronger, and hopefully Chelsea Peretti, and
Great.
hopefully Natasha Leggero and Kumail and Paul Siebes, and just all these
Great
people that
people.
that maybe don't haven't had quite the exposure
You're
that they
gonna
deserve
record
it.
it and then-
We're gonna record it. We're gonna do a live comedy show at Meltdown. Everyone will do it'll be like an old comedy special,
Right.
And then we'll put it out as a podcast.
As a podcast. You should
great.
also put it out as a DVD and a CD. that you can buy.
I don't know if we'll do that. That takes shooting and editing and.
Well, you know.
We'll figure
Never
that. We'll have to
get on
figure
a
that
flip
out.
camera.
So that I will say, like, if you're in LA on the 15th
You're
of
asking us
December.
to do it? Great.
That's
No,
so
guys,
nice. Thank
no,
you.
you
No,
already
thank
have
you
your
so
own
much.
thing.
No, that's
you
so-
already.
We don't mind.
But the shows.
I love listening to, like, again, talking about podcasts, like listening to, like, that'd be something like Carlos Mencia would be like, you want me to do it? I'm just going to bump Jonah. He doesn't need, his time.
He bumps 3
Carlos did
people
4
for the
hours.
young comedian special.
So that show's December 15th. If you want to come to the live show, that'll be at Meltdown Comics in Los Angeles. And then I didn't have time to ask the question that I really wanted to ask, which is, are your cocks identical?
Cock rings, identical.
Okay.
Cock rings. And
I've had plastic surgery down there.
No, you're not. Are you fraternal? You're fraternal twins.
we're identical.
Well,
We're
and
identical.
I will say this: my cock has glasses. Randy's does not. Randy's does not. So
And the Fat Watch.
Or a monocle. Wouldn't it have a monocle?
it would have a monocle, but I can't do a contact down there because it's just so hard. I can't.
You can't put it inside of it.
It's too sensitive.
I would say.
Sorry, I ended the podcast with the hackiest joke
No,
that
joke.
could come out of my mouth.
We, connected to our cock rings are 2 tiny keys that whenever we tweet, because we have the same Twitter account, we have Sklar Brothers, you put it in the
Plug
thing
the
and
key
then
in
you
at the same
kind
time.
of double
Sir, turn your
twist
key
it.
to the right.
It's like a safety deposit box.
But you don't
or
want to
a
lose
mission,
that.
or the launch codes.
Launch codes for
for
missiles. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to lose that key, so you put it in the place where you'll kind of always remember.
So SklarBrothers.com is
It's
that?
at Sklar Brothers is our Twitter. That's usually when you can kind of find out what's going on. Sklarbro Country, which is at earwolf.com. If people are going to be up in San Francisco, we're headlining the New Year's show.
Oh,
there
great.
at the Palace of Fine Arts
with
for the
Nick
Punchline.
Thunes on the show and Charlene Yee's on the show. It's a fun show.
That'll be
Should
fun.
great. And then we're talking to Sketchfest about doing a live Sklarbro. We've never done a live Sklarbro, but potentially doing a live Sklarbro up in San Francisco for Sketchfest the last weekend in January.
This could be the year of the podcast up at Sketchfest.
That would be so
it'd
much
be really
fun,
cool.
and then do we would love to try and get, because the San Francisco Giants won the World Series, get some of these great, and they're great dudes.
Well, I'll tell you something. I only know one person in sports.
Barry Zito.
I'm friends with Barry Zito.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Get him to come on the.
Was he on the roster?
I don't think he was. I don't know. If he did.
But he's a very nice guy.
Seems like a great dude and funny, and seems like a quirky dude.
Brian Wilson, who's the relief pitcher who grew basically
From the
Abe
Beach
Lincoln's
Boys?
beard.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, but he grew a beard like what's his name's beard from Wet Hot American Summer. I mean,
He looks like Chris Maloney.
He looked like Maloney in Wet Hot American Summer if Maloney was trying to didn't have the time to grow back that beard because of SVU, and so they wanted to do a reunion show, and he just put on a fake beard. That's what he looked like, and it was so genius. And he's a very funny guy.
There's actually a scene in Wet Hot American Summer where it is a fake beard because he did
Oh,
go
yeah.
back to shoot.
He had to go back and shoot it, so
Yeah.
it is a fake beard.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. You guys are wonderful, and I'm glad we've been friends all these years.
Likewise.
And I hope we continue to blah blah, slather, slather, lick, lick, kiss.
Oh, that's not going to happen.
What?
No, I mean, yes, for sure.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You want to say it, Jonah?
Enjoy your burrito.
Now leaving Nerdist.com.